let's see here. I'll wait for the commercials to end. Okay, I think we're back. Can everyone hear me? We'll give it about 15 more seconds just in case anyone got commercialed. Okay, so I think we are good. So I'd like to show you a couple examples of the use of a line renderer, and it might surprise you actually. So here's an example of a tower defense game we've been prototyping, and as you can see, when you move your mouse over a character, over a tower in particular, the raccoon and the box tower over here, what you can see is that this cool little radial kind of shape, this polygon comes out and begins spinning. This is actually meant to show the visibility distance of your towers. And so this actually, it doesn't really look like a line, does it? But in fact it is. It is a line renderer that is being used to create this kind of arbitrary geometric shape. So I'll show you another example of this. That is really useful for guidance and feedback. But when you click in this game, we actually spawn this cool little wave, right? You can see this little star shape just kind of bursts out of the tile that you clicked on. This is meant to make it feel really good to click on stuff, and it's meant to give the player game state feedback. In other words, when the player clicks on a tile in this game, the game creates that little effect to tell the player, we heard you, okay? The click registered. You know, we know you clicked on this, okay? And that is part of what makes games feel really kind of tactile and juicy. Okay, anyway, I want to show you how to produce something like this, okay? So let's go ahead and let's go into our line renderer here. And what I'd like to do, we've already done this in the last section, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our, let's see, I'm going to get rid of our components here. We're going to remake those. Okay, there we go. So we'll play the game and nothing happens, all right? Nothing happens. Boom, there you go. There's your game, okay? So let's go ahead and make something happen. One of the first things we need to do to start drawing lines and drawing shapes is we need to add ourselves a line render component, okay? And we can see that it has started drawing a line right away, except this isn't really what we want. If we look at this line render component, it has a ton of really cool properties on it, sort of like the particle system. Yeah, we can change it to do whatever we want. We can change the material. If you ever see this pink color, this particular shade of pink, Unity's trying to tell you that you're missing a material. And if we go into our Materials tab underneath the line render component, we can see that this is indeed the case. There's no material now. So let's go ahead and grab the default kind of 2D sprite material. And now we've got this block right here. We can change its color if we want to. Let's go ahead and make it a cool, cool red maybe. Oh, cool. Okay. So we got this little gradient going on. And let's go ahead and make it a little bit longer. The line renderer determines where to render a line essentially by you providing a bunch of points, okay? A bunch of 3D points, a bunch of vector 3s. If you look at our positions property here under our line render component, we have two of them, and they're both basically the same. You know, one's slightly higher than the other on the z-axis. But let's go ahead and let's go ahead and bring these back. I want to make a horizontal line. So to the left on the x-axis, and then to the right 3 units on the x-axis. We'll play the game, and we'll see our line render. All right, there we go. Right, and it looks pretty cool. We can also do neat things like we can customize the width of our line, but we can actually do so over the span of the line too. So if we want the beginning to be really tiny and thin, but then we want to get a little bit wider, we can do this, right? We can use this graph to kind of control how wide we want to be and where. We can even make it go kind of whooshy if we want. We can do something like this maybe. I'm not sure if it's responding anymore. That's interesting. Anyway, well, I wonder why it's doing that. Okay, so here's a question for you. We want a more interesting shape than just a line. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need to adjust these points. This positions field needs to be given a ton of different points. And we probably want to programmatically compute what those points are. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and add a new component. Let's call this render circle 2, because we're going to use our line render to create a circle shape. So let's go ahead and wait for Visual Studio to update real quick. Wait for Unity to update. Okay, we'll now go into this script. The first thing we want to do is we want to grab a reference to that line render component. So we'll create a variable, LR, we'll fill that variable right away when the game starts with the reference to the actual line render component right next to us. Another thing we want to do, though, is that this component really can't do its job unless this line render component exists on our game object. And so what we'll do is we'll use our little C# attribute called a require component. You've probably seen this a couple times before, but this allows us to say this component cannot exist without this other component. So it allows us to establish a dependency that Unity will handle automatically. So we'll say, hey, render circle 2 can't do its job unless we have a line render on this game object. And as a reminder, what will happen is if we try and remove the line render, Unity will tell us, no can do. Okay? That line render is needed by our render circle 2 component. So let's go ahead and try and remove it real quick. I'll prove it to you. Remove component. Can't remove line render because render circle 2 depends on it. Boom, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and just experiment a little bit. The line render has a couple really helpful functions that we need to use. One of these is position count. We need to actually set and tell it how many positions we're going to have. We also, well, okay, let's go ahead and say it's going to be like 2 for now. Okay, and we'll add the semicolon there. Another really important function is set vertices, I think. No, set positions. The set positions function takes a essentially an array of vector 3, an array of 3D points, and these become the points that we render between. Okay, so we're gonna need an array of vector 3s. I prefer lists, so let's do that instead. A list of vector 3. Let's call this vertices equals new vector 3. There we go. And let's go ahead and we're going to add in a few vertices into this list. So let's add some similar stuff. Let's go vector 3.left, but times 5, not 3. And then we're okay. And then we're also going to add how about vector 3.right? Okay. We're going to then take vertices. How many positions do we need? Vertices.count. What vertices are we going to use? Vertices, but we need to convert it to an array because this function takes an array and not a list. Easy, okay? So now when we run the game, we're going to run a little test here. We expect this line to get slightly longer than it used to be. 2 additional units of a length on both sides, so an increase of 4 overall. Just going to play the game. And boom, it's a little bit longer than it used to be. Good, so our code is working. So now, however, I don't want to have a horizontal line. It's a little bit boring, right? I want to have like a circle. You can do all sorts of stuff with a circle. You can use it to show a spawn point. You can use it to make this like little shockwave come out when you do a cool attack or something. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. So let's go ahead and I want to start calculating points around a circle. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's determine how many points we're going to have. Int num vertices. Let's say we're going to start off with 5. Okay. Now, in order to calculate each point along our circle, we need to know what is the distance between these vertices. Well, it's going to be the distance around the entire circle divided by the number of vertices we have. So let's call this delta t. Okay. And we're going to calculate this via 2 times mathf.pi. This is the full distance, the 360-degree distance around the circle in radians. We're going to divide by the number of vertices. And this is now the distance we travel around each part of the circle before we hit the next vertice. Okay? So now we're going to iterate through the number of vertices we want. I equals 0, I smaller than vertices dot count, I plus plus. And then we need to calculate our new value of t. So float t is going to be equal to delta t times I, the number of vertices we've seen so far. Okay? Okay, so now we can use this t value to actually come up with our point in 3D space. So we're going to use a couple of trigonometric functions here. We're going to go vector 3, new point, or new vertex, equals new vector 3. On the x-axis, we're going to use cosine, so math f.cosine, cosine of our value of t. On the y-axis, we're going to just use a value 0, since we don't want to leave the ground. We just want our circle to be on the xz axis. And then, for the z-axis, we're going to use the complement to cosine. We're going to use sine. Okay? This is going to create a really tiny circle, though, so we're going to multiply by, like, 5. Okay, that'll give us a nice radius of 5. Okay, we got a new vertex here, so we're going to go ahead and add that to our vertices list. Okay, there we go. Now, in order to visualize this and make sure our calculation was correct, what we're going to do is we are going to take this vertex list, we're going to go ahead and make it into a member of the class, and then in another function, on particular, the famous onDrawGizmos function, we're going to go ahead and draw these points. So we're going to iterate through the points. I equals 0. I is smaller than the number of vertices we have. And for each one, we're going to go gizmos.drawSphere, so we can see these little points in our scene view. We're going to draw them at the location of the vertice. So I'm going to draw every single vertice, 0.25, width, radius for each sphere. And let's see how it goes, okay? So we're going to go ahead and start the game, and then we're going to look and see if we can see those points. Okay. So here we go. Come on, let's go. Sometimes Unity just takes a really long time to start. I wonder if my version has like a race condition or something, and it just freezes. I might have to kill it. So sad, so sad. The first section didn't have basically any technical issues. Not so with this section. All right, rest in peace. F's in the chat for Unity. Oops, nope, that's the wrong game. F's in the chat for Unity again. Okay, Unity editor, bye-bye. Okay, so now we have line render demo. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get it rolling again. Question: Has anyone used line render yet? I think we had one team that used it for like their P2 project. Yeah, the line render is very, very fun. You can make graphs out of it really easily, which can be super, super cool. I always like to play a game and then see analytics, but it can take a little bit of time to get that working in a nice way. Okay, so we're back. So let's go ahead and play our game here. Let's make sure that it has the component we need. It does not. Does it have it in the sample scene? It does. Okay, so which component does it have? It has render... line render, it doesn't have it. So let's go to render circle 2. There we go. Let's see. Okay. I'm beginning to get suspicious here that we might have an infinite loop or something. I'm a little bit suspicious. I++, I is going to 0, I is smaller than vertice count. Okay, I++, gizmos.drawSphere, vertice, that seems fine. But just in case, let's get rid of this function. And you're going to get a debugging session right here. The other potential cause of an infinite loop is this right here. So we're adding, oh, that's why. That's why. Okay, do you see it? Do you know where this infinite loop is coming from? Can you spot it, chat? Can you spot it? Here's the infinite loop. Vertices is the value, the count of vertices that we have in this list is the number that we are climbing up to. However, every single iteration of this loop, we add a new vertice. So in other words, we are constantly making this list bigger And as a result, we're going to higher and higher numbers. This is an incorrect thing to do. We should be using num vertices instead of vertices.count. Bingo. So that's the cause of our infinite loop. And Unity is going to need to rest in peace for our error again. Oh, actually, maybe did it finish? No? It's recompiling. Maybe that'll break the infinite loop for us. Yeah, well, the thing was, it was actually an autocomplete issue because I started typing vertices, and I hoped autocomplete would bring up num vertices, but it brought up the array, and I didn't notice that I'd been foiled. Okay, so let's go ahead and wake up Unity again. You can actually attach to Unity and use that to kill the infinite loop and end the process, but it's a little bit buggy and it sometimes doesn't work, so sometimes just reloading Unity is the best bet. What's everyone drinking? I've got some ice here, some sparkling ice. It's like this flavored caffeinated water. No sugar though. Tastes pretty good. Come on, Unity, let's go. Okay, here we are. So we're back. We're going to hop back into our scene here. We're going to make sure that we've got the right components on this game object. We do not, so I'm going to add the component, boom, and then I'm going to save. Okay, so let's go ahead and play the game. Hopefully it will not, now that we fixed this infinite loop, hopefully we will be able to start it up. Oh, all right, cool. Okay, so you can see that we have this circular shape. And if you zoom in and you look at these points, we can see they're everything we want. There are a couple points that are off the circle, but that is because we are adding them up here. That's kind of debug points. So if you notice, that circle is not actually complete. And the reason why is because when we provide this array of vertices, it will draw a line from one to the other until it runs out of vertices to draw to, which means that it will actually never complete any shape unless you also draw to the initial point. So we'll go ahead and we'll add one more final vertex, and it's simply going to be the first vertex that we already have in the list. Okay? So let's go ahead and see how this looks. Then maybe we can mess around with the width and stuff like that, and the color. Ugh. Hey, there we go. Look at that. Looks good. We got all the points we want. Now, this is really funny because this is meant to be a circle, and I guess if you zoom out a ton, it starts to look like a little dot. But it is very, very downsampled and very kind of compressed, right? We need more vertices if we want to have a proper circle. So why don't we say, instead of using 5 vertices, let's use like 30, okay? Let's see how that looks. I think ideally we make that like a public inspector variable so we can change it at runtime, but we'll just do a quick little compile. Should be fine. And there we go. There we go. We've got our little circle. It looks really, really good. If we look at the scene view, we can see all these points that have been calculated along the edge of the circle. And we can start to play with other properties of our shape here. We can make it wider. We can make it start really thin, but then get really wide toward the end. So we've got this cool like little loading bar shape. We can take the colors and say, you know what? I want to start with like a nice kind of yellow. Or actually, let's have it start with a nice white, and then we will have it transition to a nice little yellow. We're going to kind of going to warmer and warmer colors here. Ooh, that looks really cool. We will then transition into like an orange. Okay, that is already kind of orange. Let's go right in here. Okay, and then we'll transition into a deeper red over here. Okay. And then maybe we can end at something super cool, like a, oh, that's awesome. Look at that, cool dark black. All right, and then there we go. We have a really cool little shape that, I mean, this could work for a loading icon, but this could also work for like a spawning icon. This could work for like any place where you want to mark a location. If you ever want to mark an environmental location as being a little bit dangerous or of interest, then you could plop this circle down on that tile or on that location, and you could make it animate if you wanted to. You could rotate this thing, and it could look really, really, really cool. So anyway, we can also probably, can we fade it? I think we can. So let's fade it right over here. Oh, that's cool. So it's kind of translucent as you go closer and closer to the end of the tail here. So that's pretty neat. Anyway, that is a cool technology that if you haven't used it yet in Unity, it can do a lot of very cool things for you pretty quickly. So I encourage you to explore it, kind of see what it can do for you. And yeah. All right. Hopefully you've assigned a few people to your aesthetics team by now. This is something that your aesthetics teams might want to add to their toolbox for any effects that you might want to do. Okay, so a couple other stuff. $4.99. A little reminder, if you like this class, if you're interested in game development, and if you're interested in taking more courses related to it here, your options are limited, but they do exist. EECS 499 is a cool course that's based on research. You get to choose how many credits you take it for, and then you have to invest somehow 3 hours times that number of credits every week. And then you dev blog to provide evidence of what you did. Okay? There are example projects. In the past, we have had students try and gamify the James Paredes EECS autograder. We have had a student, Michael Siciliano, who's now at Jackbox Games, who created a game that allows Twitch.tv audience members to play the game along with their host. So he created a Twitch bot that took what people said in the Twitch IRC, beamed that to the game server, and then the game would take those commands that the audience typed in and use it to manipulate a character. So your Twitch players could play, your Twitch audience could play with you as you streamed. It was very cool. We had another student who took neural nets and got them to work with, I think, a Fire Emblem emulator. And so we had a Fire Emblem machine learning bot that was trying to play through the game. And I don't think it did super well, but it was very interesting to watch. Anyway, there's another course beyond this one. It's Wolverine Soft Studio. The studio course is all about joining a big team, so like 30 to 40 people, and working on a big game, which is really, really fun, and releasing it on the itch.io at the end of the semester. That can help you with resume material. It can help give you a lot to talk about with recruiters, and you will get very good at version control when you are on a 20 to 30 person team with 20 different people. You think version control and merging is tough with like 3 or 4 people or 5 people? Woo! It's an adventure for sure, but it's really educational. Okay, so you all got your grades back for the extra credit, the freelancer extra credit. And soon, if not already, you should be contacted by freelancers who are looking to make music for you. Now, you'll have to go out and find the 3D modelers and artists, and you'll have to go out and find your own voice actors, but the musicians will probably reach out to you soon. When you are interacting with external parties to your team, you have to do things that IRL, are really effective. You have to have certain techniques. So if you have a small startup or a company that needs to hire out some stuff to be done, you want to have a few things that can help you out. One is references. So an external team member is not going to be intimately familiar with your team, the project, or its goals. And so you want to provide, playable builds of your project so they can get a feel for what you're going for. But you also want to make sure that you have references that you can hand them and say, okay, we're making a game. It's similar to Celeste, okay? Or it's similar to Splosion Man, or similar to this other game, or similar to a puppet combo game, right? You want to be able to hand off examples of art styles and pieces of music to help your freelancer understand what you're going for. Otherwise, You'll send them out to do work, and then in a couple of weeks, when you get the final result, you'll be like, what is this? This isn't what we asked for. This wasn't what we had in mind. Well, you didn't share your mind, so you got something surprising. Hope you can use it. You want to try and get everyone on the same page. References and examples are really helpful in doing this, okay? Art styles. This is I really like this image. I forget which character this is, but this is a character drawn in all of the different cartoony art styles across popular modern shows. So you've got Adventure Time with the way they do eyes and mouths. You've got Gravity Falls with the kind of thicker black outline on the side and eyes that like pop off the side of the head. You've got the Simpsons style. You've got Fairly OddParents style, Phineas and Ferb. So anyway, yeah, art styles, really, really important. Okay, you always want to have some sort of deadline in mind when you reach out to or when you negotiate with your freelancer. The freelancer, if not given a deadline, you have no idea when their asset is going to come in. You have no idea if they're going to deliver with enough time to integrate what they delivered or get another round of feedback or iteration. And if you don't have a deadline, any process that doesn't have deadlines tends to slip and slip and slip and slip. It's just kind of how it goes. It is, I believe, it is the formal way to think about it is Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law, you can find this on Wikipedia. It is a funny law. It's one of my favorites. It says that any activity will expand to meet the resources allocated to it. This is to say that if you have a project that is due in 2 weeks, and then suddenly it's due in 4 weeks, there's a very good chance that that project will not be that much more advanced, but it will definitely slow down. It will slow down to consume all that time. Likewise, if you give your freelancers a task to complete, like do this art asset, we need this 3D model, we need this piece of music, but don't tell them how long they have, then they will delay it. They will put it behind other priorities they have for other teams, and you'll end up getting it way late. And it won't necessarily be larger quality, even though you gave more time. So Parkinson's law. All right. For 3D art, try and start with sketches, concept art, and then move on to the 3D model once everyone's satisfied. Set up some low latency communications like Discord, Slack, and you want an instant communication channel as well, and that means phone. Okay? So that if your freelancer has a really important piece that you need and the showcase is tomorrow and they're not responding to your chat messages or emails, you can call them and figure out what's going on, okay? All right, so we're almost to our break, but I want to get a few more things done. P3 Alpha. P3 Alpha is a new assignment you have. And, come on, let's go. P3 Alpha is a new assignment that is very similar to your previous P3 milestone deliverables, but it has an additional requirement of it. It has the requirement of dev blogs, okay? So dev blog submission, this is a new thing you need to submit, and your iteration.txt that you had submitted in previous assignments is now devblog.txt, okay? In other words, your iteration.txt is maturing, it's evolving, it's going to become a public internet accessible dev blog. You will be tasked with establishing a dev blog for your game on indiedb.com, which is kind of a cool it's a cool website where people and development teams post updates about their games. So you can see there are just tons of dev blogs in here. Here's a game called Maritime Calling, and it's a pirate game, and here are some examples of the new game looks. So, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, that's really neat. The point of a dev blog, though, is you want to tell people and show people what has changed. What are you working on, and then what's coming next, okay? So there's an example of a dev blog on IndieDB. You're also going to have a dev blog on the TIG source forums. This is the Independent Game Source forums. So we got some a bunch of stuff here. We got, how about False Skies? You'll create a thread, and you will write about like what features are new this week. You'll post images and screenshots, and maybe even a demo link so people can play it and give you feedback, okay? Note that you are not creating an itch.io page for your game yet. Do not release on itch.io. That is what you're going to do for your very final project deliverable. Your P3 Gold will release on itch.io in a few weeks, okay? Anyway, the reason that we do this is, many of you are at the end of your college career, and it's often said that college is one of the last times that you can truly make mistakes without too much nasty consequence. College, the main purpose of it is for you to dive into new material and to make mistakes and learn. However, if you do not want to be making too many mistakes when you go into your future career, when you go onto an engineering firm, if you make a mistake that causes a pain, if some technology you worked on ends up hurting someone, that's really awful. And so the reason we are starting to get posting stuff to the outside world, we're starting to reveal our work to the wider public, is because very soon that will be pretty much your only option. Okay? When you graduate, you'll be making products for the world. You'll be doing research for the world. And so we're going to get a little taste of doing stuff and releasing it publicly in the next couple weeks. Okay? All right. Okay, so deliverables, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you know that all. That's fine. Another thing you'll notice is that there's a lot of points left on the board for this course, in particular because the deliverables are growing in point value. So P3 Gold is going to be 64 points, I think. And so as long as we can get our games to a good place by these last few deliverables, then your grade should be in a good spot, okay? All right. So I want to skip this for now, spawner scripts. I'm going to skip that for now. You can read about it a little bit later, and maybe we'll come back if we have time. But today, what I want to do is I want to get into our main topic for the lecture, which is games and education. This might seem like a very tangential topic. Why are we learning about this? But as it turns out, a big part of the future of games is going to be in education. I'll prove it to you. Let's go ahead and take a look. I have a question for you, chat. Let's see how well you do. I'm going to give you a description of a product, and I want you to tell me, what am I talking about, okay? This is a product whose purpose is to engage users on a topic. The way that it does this, or the tools, is it uses scoring methodology. So if a user does well, they get points. If they don't do well, they lose those points, okay? Now, part one approach that it takes often is there's a difficulty curve, where this product, interactions with it start off very easy, and then they eventually start to test mastery and they get more complicated. So, what am I talking about? The users who use this product, sometimes they are doing it solo, and then sometimes they are part of a team. They do it with others. This also is a product that's very expensive for the users in both time and money. And so the question is, what am I describing to you? Online testing software. Not quite. But it's getting there. Not quite. Taking EECS courses. Okay, so I'm describing college, am I? Okay. Could I be describing anything else? Can you think of where else have we talked about the idea of practice and then performance? Any ideas? Let's go ahead. And I think after the next few slides, you will understand what I'm referring to. Have you ever played this game? Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever heard of the Oregon Trail? The Oregon Trail is kind of a classic 1980s educational game. One of the first educational games, actually, and also one of the most effective, as we'll see at the end of our lecture here. This is a really, really impactful game that kind of started off games being seen as a way to educate. And this is a really, really important modern topic. Not only was it critical in the 80s, but it also is very impactful, probably far more so today. I was looking through my email inbox, and the NSF, the National Science Foundation, sent out an email about all the startups that they had given money to and helped fund. And one of those companies was a company called Prisms of Reality. This is a company that does VR technology and software. In particular, they make games. They make educational games. Here is a really cool game that it looks like you could buy for about $8, $9. It is called Pandemic. And this might, if you've ever played Plague Inc., this might remind you of it. This is a game where you're in VR and you're kind of walking around and you're experiencing the spread of a virus. And it's kind of scary in a way. You're in like a marketplace, and as you look around, you can actually see that some germs are visualized in the air, and you are starting to become infected. So you can see, someone's look at those bacteria flying through the air, right? As people breathe, as people sniff and sneeze. Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. They also have a section of this game that is related to kind of community simulation. So you have this city and all these people, and you have a few of them that are infected, and so you can see how this kind of spreads through a population, and in some cases devastates it. And so in other words, a really, really cool kind of game that is geared toward education. And this, if you look at this, I'm convinced that if you were given 6 months, you could probably make this, right? All of you are extremely talented with this kind of technology. And by the way, this team to create this product got more than 6 months and more than $250,000. Actually, not more, but around $250,000. Chat, riddle me this. Do you think you could create the game you just saw if I handed you a check for $250,000 and gave you a year to do it? What do you think, chat? How you feeling? Heck yes, Evanier says. Yeah, like in fact, when I see this kind of thing, I'm a little bit salty, to be honest with you. Why can't I? Who's going to hand me that $250,000 to knock out a game like this in a couple months? Yeah, Saturated Umink says, yeah, 2 months sounds about right. I think it'd probably take a little bit more time than that. But 2 months is about the same amount of time you have for your Project 3. And you'd have to get up to speed with virtual reality, which isn't very hard, and you'd have to find 3D models, and you'd have to build a bunch of controls and stuff, and yeah. But anyway, like this is a good example that shows just how important education is for many game teams these days. If you go on to work on a game team, then there's a very decent chance that your team will find a lot of its revenue, a lot of its sustainability coming from educational products. Okay. So I have another question for you, chat. Actually, you know what? We're going to start this series of questions. I'll let you think about it. We're going to come back in 5 minutes, okay? So all of you, take a break. We're going to see you back here in about 5 minutes, and we will go through some additional challenges for you. Okay, we'll see you in 5. I'll turn the music back on. We're going to get some SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Who's played that game? And I'm gonna munch my carrot here. There's something I would like to remind you all about. Okay, here we are. So Be sure to check this out, right? There is now an event for our showcase. This event is really, really helpful for us to kind of gauge how many people attend. Usually this gets to around 70 to 100 people, and then we have a lot more show up at the actual day of the event. People invite their parents, people invite their friends and family. I sent out a Piazza post about this, and I'll do so again, but you've worked so hard this semester. You really, really, really want your friends and family to be able to partake in, you know, all these efforts that you've put out. And it might be hard to notice or realize right now, but it really, really, really is impactful for your parents in many cases when they get to see very viscerally what you've been working on the last 3 or 4 months. Okay, so please consider inviting your friends and family. They're going to be so proud of you. We definitely are. It's going to be a very, very good time. Okay, so please share this with your friends and family so that they know how to get to this event and when it happens. April 21st, around 6:45 to 7 p.m. And the fact that it's free. Okay, awesome. Thank you, team. Okay, we'll give it another 2 minutes or so. Yeah, VR is pretty tricky. I do have a VR setup for testing any VR Project 3 games that get made in this course. We do occasionally have a team that wants to do VR, and they're welcome to do so. But the setup and equipment is a pain in the butt, and often it just strongly limits your audience. So it certainly appears that VR and AR have found a lot more success in the enterprise world than in the direct-to-consumer world, I think for those reasons. It's gotten a lot better, but it still isn't super accessible. And games in general are not all that accessible. Buying a console, which is expensive, or a gaming PC to play the latest AAA games, and the games themselves are expensive. Yeah, as much as we might rag on mobile games and be disappointed with some of their elements they tend to have, they are very accessible, and that's a really, really cool thing. We'll talk about the business model of mobile games a little bit more when we get into our business lecture in probably a week or two. Okay. Go time. Okay, so the question, chat, for you. Which of the following games do you think taught me to read back in the day? Was it Reader Rabbit? Does anyone remember Reader Rabbit? Right? I remember playing that in my computer lab at my elementary school. Reader Rabbit. Jumpstart, first grade reading. Does anyone remember that game? Was it Reading Blaster? You probably heard of Math Blaster, but you may not have heard of Reading Blaster. It definitely exists. Or was it Pokemon Red? The game about capturing monsters, talking to a ton of people, and using a lot of menus. Chat, what do you think it was? What do you think, chat? What's the word? Evaneer says Pokemon. That's a pretty good guess. Yes, it was Pokemon. Jumpstart was pretty lit. Okay. I don't remember playing Jumpstart. I think I did have it, though. But Pokemon was indeed the winner. It was a game that was so popular among my friends and so visceral in what it showed you. Imagine being a little kid and suddenly this crazy like water monster jumps on your screen. You don't know what it's called because you can't read. And you don't know what it's doing because you can't read the description box down here that I'm covering with my my face. And so what happened was suddenly the ability to read became extremely valuable, even to my little child mind. I knew that I couldn't really catch them all if I didn't know how to read. And so suddenly there was the incentive, and I learned to read really, really fast. Question: which game taught me math and economics? Was it Magnificent Maths, a game so obscure that I could not find a screenshot of it? Was it Zoombinis? Who remembers Zoombinis? So every semester, a lot of people have heard of Zoombinis, but the number of people goes down and down and down. Pretty soon I'm going to have to start using different examples. Has anyone played or heard of Zoombinis? Yeah, it's an interesting kind of game with a lot of logic puzzles and a bit of math. A very, very cool game. Math missions, right? You can kind of see it down here. Math missions, grades K to 2, The Race to Spectacle City Arcade. Or was it Roller Coaster Tycoon? The game where you produce roller coasters, and because you want to build your theme park, you need to start learning about things like finance and loans and revenue and profit. And you need to start choosing which rides to close to make room for more successful rides. What do you think? What was the game that made it happen as far as math and econ goes? What would your guess be? No guesses. Okay. I'm starting to wonder whether the second section is something that we need to keep doing. The interactivity is so low. Okay, let's move on. It was not Math Missions, it was Roller Coaster Tycoon, as one would expect. This was a game that leaps off the page. When you see this box in the store or even in the library, you could often buy this game. It is kind of what many young kids' dreams are. You love roller coasters, very popular among young kids. Creating them is a kind of a dream. And when you play this game, you might not realize it, but you are interacting with a ton of economics and financial concepts. So, like I said, often you need to take out a loan right when you start this game, and you have to pay it back. Otherwise, that interest will kind of eat away at your revenue. You have to be careful because many of these parks are actually constrained in their space. So when you put down one park, you have to kind of look at how it is doing, then you have to weigh that against the potential of a more recent ride that might be more successful. So there are a lot of interesting little economic and business topics that you kind of explore and learn about in this game without even realizing it. What about astronomy? So astronomy is a topic that some children get introduced to pretty early in school, elementary school, but many, I don't know, don't really remember the order of the planets, for instance, that often. And they don't really understand other kind of astronomical concepts like a red dwarf or the idea that the sun is eventually going to eat the planet in a bunch of years. However, if they played a game like this, then they might actually understand more of that. Let's take a look. All right, cool. So one of the funny things I'll point out here is that attack, that single attack, lasted like 3 minutes, and actually about 2 minutes, and wiped out like many of the planets in the solar system. But it only took away about 95% of each character's health. So our characters are very hardy indeed. Okay, so if you played this as a little kid, there's a very good chance that you remember what the order of the planets is because you watched them get consumed on their way to Earth. You know that eventually the sun might have a possibility of growing, and that Mercury and Venus are right in its path to get destroyed, followed by Earth. So this is kind of a funny example, but it is an example of how video games can leave an impression on their players in a way that teachers can only dream of. So what about this? What about epidemic progression? If anyone hasn't played Plague Inc., then this is a very, very cool game that combines elements of idle games, strategy games, and RPGs, or RTSs, with the concept of pandemics. And as a result, it was able to spread like a virus among many players and teach them a lot about how pandemics work and how they grow out of control. Let's take a look.
Commencing Autopsy 3. Time, 2104. 27-year-old female infected with unknown pathogen. Blood analysis indicates virus. Provisional name is X12. Deceased had traveled in China before returning home 2 weeks ago. That must have been pre-quarantine. Unknown if had contact with livestock, but I can definitely see evidence of insect bites. Deceased had reported coughing and sneezing with a high fever. I'm seeing a nasty rash, some abscesses around the abdominal cavity. Clear signs of immune suppression. Cause of death appears to be catastrophic organ failure. Findings match reports coming out of China. This is highly concerning. The deceased may still be infectious.
All right. So Plague Inc., a very, very popular and very well-known game about essentially trying to spread a pandemic. You are the virus. And if you noticed, if you watch closely in this trailer, you noticed that this game has many elements of other games in its genre, things like tech trees. But those are modeled after real-world concepts, educational concepts. So many of you have probably heard on the news that COVID-19 has had some variations, right? That make the virus a little bit different, that change its nature a little bit. And that is modeled in this game by the tech tree. So you are a virus. As you infect more people, you get the ability to mutate and kind of change your behavior to become more deadly if you want to, or to become more resistant to certain temperatures, to be able to live better and spread better in different climates, to become more infectious, stuff like that. Very, very cool game. A game that focused first on gameplay and tried and true genres, and then mapped those genres successfully onto educational concepts like the pandemic. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going here. They actually have a new COVID-19 mode where they model the COVID-19 virus. And if you play it, I think they send some of the money you paid to charity. So it's pretty cool idea. So the final question I have for you, they released an expansion where you're trying to career it as well. Yep, that's right. So the final question, what do the following games have in common? We have 4 games. What do they have in common, chat? We have Reader Rabbit, second grade math. You can see that even though this is a Reader Rabbit, our rabbit friend is holding a 1/2 fraction. So we got a math game. We have Math Blaster, ages 4 to 6. I think I grew up with this one. A pretty cool game. Zoombinis, right? The kind of mathematical, logical journey. And, I don't know, Resident Evil Remake for the GameCube. what do all these things have in common? And you might be asking yourself, what what's I feel like one of these is slightly not like the others. Yeah, one of these might be slightly not like the others, but is that really true? Okay, we've got 3 games that are about teaching you math, and then a 4th game about teaching you a lot of mathy stuff, as it turns out. Let's go ahead and break it down. You have the that they get progressively harder. Maybe I'm not sure. So you've got Reader Rabbit, 2nd grade math. This is a game in which you do math to save the day. Math Blaster is a game in which you do math to save the day. Resident Evil Remake is a game in which you really do, if you think about it, do a lot of math so that you don't get eaten by a zombie or run out of ammo so that you can save the day. Okay? Now, what's interesting here is that this 3rd game is very mathy. I'll prove it to you in a second. But it's not explicitly trying to be about math education like these other 2 are. They're marketing themselves very, very heavily to parents, to teachers, like, we will teach your kid math, okay? Resident Evil Remake, not so much, okay? But is it any less of a math game? Let's find out. So here's a screenshot. Someone tell him about Typing of the Dead. Dunkey just had a fun video on that. This is a screenshot of a kind of moment-to-moment, an average scenario in Resident Evil Remake. You play as Jill Valentine. You are in this mansion. Your goal is to escape it without dying and rescue your team members and figure out what happened here. Why are there zombies everywhere? What's Umbrella up to, you know? So, here's the situation, okay? You are faced with a zombie. In your head, you've fought a few zombies, so you probably know that it takes around, let's say, around 8 bullets to kill a zombie consistently, okay? Well, okay, this zombie's going to require, a handful of bullets, 8 bullets. How many do I have? Okay, well, you open up your inventory screen, and you see, aha, I have 15 bullets. No problem. I can take down this enemy. Okay, well, you look at your map and you say, if I take down this enemy, why would I want to do this? Well, there's one more enemy behind this one because you've actually been down this hallway before. So you know from your previous experience that there's one more zombie, okay? Now here's my question, chat. Here's my question. If you have 15 bullets and you know each zombie takes 8 bullets, do you want to go this direction or not? Chat, are you going to the left here or not? You've got 15 bullets, and you've got 2 zombies. Each zombie requires 8 bullets. Evanier says, sure, I'm going to use the knife. But you know, the knife is a very risky weapon. You're probably going to take some damage if you try and use it. So, you think about this. Well, okay. I could go to the left here, but you know what? I've got this other hallway that I haven't explored yet. Okay, so there could be anything this way. There could be a health kit. There could be additional ammo, a new weapon, a new safe room. But we don't actually know. So now ask yourself, let's weigh the odds. You could go through this zombie. You could take down this first zombie, and then you could fight the second. You're probably going to take some damage. Or you could go this other route that you know, well, you don't actually know it's going to be less dangerous, but it could be, okay? So what are the odds you're going to have more success by exploring in this direction than going down this hallway and potentially taking some damage? Because here's the thing, you know there's a safe room down this way as well. So even if you take some damage, you might have a health item stored in the safe room or some more ammo. So it might be worth it still. Or maybe it won't be worth it. What do you have in the safe room? Can you even save? Because in Resident Evil, in the early games, you needed to use an item to save, an ink ribbon. And if you save too often, you run out. You've got 5 ink ribbons, though, so you're fine, okay? You can definitely save if you go there. What does your health look like? Well, your health is fine. There are 3 states, fine, caution, and danger. Okay, so you're going to run down this hallway. You won't be able to take down the second zombie, so chances are you'll get to the safe room with caution health. Is that an acceptable result for you? You have to weigh it against the odds of finding better stuff down this hall, okay? You can survive 2 more hits. So what you realize here, if you really break it down, is that, oh my goodness, this is one moment, this is one encounter in this long game, and yet there are a ton of numbers and probabilities to weigh, and even pathfinding that you need to remember and think through logically, okay? Is there another way to get to my destination that doesn't involve as much pain and damage, okay? So I actually love the fact that saves are consumables. It prevents you from saving too often, which is probably the least scary thing in the world. Imagine a game in which you are truly invincible. That is like not a scary game, is it? However, if you haven't saved in a while, you got a lot to lose, don't you? So the tension there is really, really important. Okay, so anyway, here's the question that this brings up, okay? What does it mean to be an educational game? Because we just looked at a game that absolutely 1,000% does not sell itself as educational, and yet if you break down the moment-to-moment action, there might be more math in this game, math that you care about, than all of the other math games that we saw today. So the question, what does it mean for a game to be educational? And here's one conclusion you could arrive at. The idea that games are pretty much always educating. They're educating something, but what they try to educate the player on is often very different. So if you think about a game like Super Mario 3D World, which is a game that we saw earlier in the course during our guidance lecture, right? This is the level Cakewalk Flip that teaches the player what these kind of flipping platforms do. The idea is every time you jump in this game, these platforms will flip. So you have to kind of plan out where you're gonna jump, and what platforms are going to be where when you do that jump, so you know where to land. The game teaches you this mechanic via this little slope that forces you to jump up. Before you can even get to these panels, you have to jump at least once so you can see how the flipping happens in response to that jump. You have this kind of safe area where you can fall and not have to worry about dying just because you mess up while experimenting with this mechanic. And so you have this classic college or high school style practice then performance approach. So Mario 3D World in this level is trying to teach you about how the panels work, essentially. It's not trying to teach you about math like the other games are. Okay? Think about Metroid. Many of you built this game, recreated it for your Project 1. This game is designed very explicitly to teach you something very early, the morph ball, right? They use the trap pattern. They want you to discover this morph ball and how it works by yourself. So in order to facilitate this and essentially guarantee that you will make this discovery and quickly, they put you in a tiny room with nothing interesting in it at all. So the player will eventually, guaranteed, get bored or frustrated, at which point they will eventually hit the down button and they will discover the magic of the morph ball. At that point, they can escape. Any point after the player escapes, the level designers know that the player understands the morph ball, and so they can use this morph ball in all sorts of puzzles. They don't have to worry that the player won't know that it exists or know how to use it. Okay? If you look at how many of you have ever gone to an internship? Chad, how many of you have ever gone to an internship or a job and you get one of those wonderful like employee training emails where you have to go online and you have to do this really boring course? Then you have to like do a boring quiz to prove that you knew the course, you followed the course, and learned about employee policy and stuff like that. Anyone do that? It's not very fun, is it? But as it turns out, it's a really big deal to companies and organizations like the University of Michigan, actually, has a bunch of these that you're required to do. As it turns out, there are game studios out there. Yeah, they're not fun at all, Ish says. As it turns out, there are game studios out there that are paid pretty handsomely to create and gamify that process. So in this case, there's a board game you have to play through to finish the course. And I think like you get to roll, and depending on what tile you land on, you have to do like a different kind of module to learn about something. It's kind of interesting. But at any rate, there are a lot of studios that are being paid a lot of money. There's a lot of focus these days and resources going to the idea of let's gamify things so that people will be more likely to remember stuff, okay? a question, is educational even a meaningful distinction these days? Many of you have played and heard of Minecraft, but did you know that there's an educational edition of Minecraft? This educational edition of Minecraft is really cool. It is the full Minecraft experience, right? You can build stuff, you can have a lot of fun. I think you can fight enemies, but it has additional features that allow your teacher, your instructor, to kind of better moderate and control the class. So the instructor can warp the class to different locations. They can better kind of watch and see what the students are doing. For instance, if you want to help your students understand what a Wild West town was like in the 1800s, then instead of reading about it in a textbook, you can take your students there and let them walk around it, and you can see stuff. Yeah, so you can script automated lessons, etc. Yeah, it's really cool stuff. Anyway, let's watch a little video about how Minecraft is becoming one of the games that students use to learn about things like logic and stuff like that. I remember I had boring typing games in my computer lab, and if I was lucky, I got to go to coolmathgames.com. Nowadays, everyone has Minecraft in their computer labs. Not everyone, I guess, but I'm really jealous. Anyway, okay, let's watch.
Minecraft is a video game that has a lot to offer. At its core, it's very open-ended. If you want to have an adventure, you can have an adventure. If you want to build something, you can build something. If you want to talk to your friends, you can talk to your friends. If you want to kill monsters, you can kill monsters. So the game appeals to a lot of people. It makes a lot of sense to take a game that is already fun, that is proven to be enjoyable to kids, and try to find a way to bring it into the classroom.
So you go here, Minecraft EDU launcher. And that should be it.
Look how pale I am. Imagine how long this took Brandon to make. I know. Oh! He just drops you from all the way up there.
You know, my school, as well as many others, have been struggling with the issue of how to teach digital citizenship, which is internet ethics, online safety, privacy, research. I mean, it's everything. Because as our kids were getting into middle school and high school, we had a lot of, frankly, ugly incidents happen. And so, the school's administration, along with the computer department, decided we really need to start teaching these concepts earlier. We're going to treat the game world as part of the classroom. It is a classroom, it's just in the digital space. And almost every single kid finally kind of came around and sort of, and got it.
Go ahead and let's start off by getting in, following the instructions that are up onto the board. Okay, you are students. Pick your avatar.
Pixel Pushers, as a student project here at the ETC, is working with Minecraft EDU to develop a series of software features for their software. So our programmers have been working on a quiz block and a lesson review tool to include in the Minecraft EDU software, while we're also working on researching, how and what you can best teach with Minecraft. You can really teach a wide array of things that aren't immediately obvious.
The kids have to think it's fun, otherwise what's the point? There's plenty of educational games out there, and frankly, very, very few of them have ever been very satisfying for me. I never wanted to use them in my classroom because it smells like school.
Make sure you're using the right material. Make sure you're not using gravel for the parts that are in between the pillars there, because the gravel will fall. Let's check out group 2. Oh, nice. You finished, you're almost done with one of the hardest shapes. Good job.
In our research, we started out at...
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that super, super cool? I imagine there's a ton of things that you can learn through interactions like that. From basic architecture to materials to logic, if you can find some redstone. If you can go to some preset, like historical buildings. I have to imagine, like Washington, D.C., has its own like Minecraft version that someone created. Imagine what you can learn through that. And the amazing thing to me is that you know that this is exactly the kind of lesson that would meet that holy grail criteria. of you do it in the classroom and you convince the students to do it at home. As in, hey, you just learned a ton about redstone logic in class, and then the kid goes home and says, what should I do now? I kind of want to keep playing Minecraft. So they open up their own copy of Minecraft, and then boom, they're still learning, right? Super, super cool. I'm so excited about the potential of games when it comes to education. Okay. There's a server somewhere, Evanier says, that used a Google height map to recreate the whole Earth roughly, and the players are trying to recreate some governments. That's funny. That's really cool. So here's a takeaway that might be useful. Often, at least in the past, we had a lot of educational games that were kind of focused first on being educational, right? They had, on the top of the box, on the front of the box, they have just educational stickers plastered everywhere. Math Blaster, right? Specifically for kids in this grade. They're trying to sell essentially to parents and teachers. They say, okay, we're going to make an educational game first. That's the focus. And then we'll try and figure out how to make it fun later. And as you've probably seen, that's not very easy, okay? We end up with a lot of educational games that are kind of ho-hum. However, lately,